I should have known it was gonna look bad, but it wasn't as people were trying to make it.
Rodney Michael Hood, born October 20th, 1992. Rodney Hood is one of those NBA players whose career looks perfectly respectable until you remember where the expectations started. Hood wasn't a bust, and I don't want this story to make him sound like one. He played 8 NBA seasons, became a legitimate starter, averaged double figures for his career, and at his best was a 6'8" wing capable of giving you 15 to 17 points a night while shooting the ball at a high level. But Hood entered the league with reasons to believe there could be more. He was a highly regarded recruit who eventually landed at Duke, where he averaged over 16 points per game, shot 42% from 3, and established himself as one of the best players on a roster loaded with future NBA talent. Yet, when the 2014 NBA draft came around, Hood lasted until the 23rd pick, and strangely, that became a theme throughout his career. In Utah, Hood developed into a productive scorer and appeared to have an opportunity for an even bigger role after Gordon Hayward left, only for Donovan Mitchell to arrive and immediately become the franchise's future. Hood was traded to Cleveland, struggled to find his place there, then eventually landed in Portland and seemed to finally find the perfect role. He was shooting nearly 50% from 3 before tearing his Achilles at just 27 years old. Rodney Hood had a good NBA career, but several times it looked like good might become something more. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Jay Feliciana 91 on YouTube for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Rodney Hood was a 6'8" shooting guard small forward from Meridian, Mississippi, where he became one of the state's top prospects at Meridian High School. By his senior year, he was a nationally ranked recruit and had been named Mississippi Mr. Basketball and Clarion Ledger Player of the Year in 2011. He stayed home for college, signing with Mississippi State, where he immediately started 29 games as a freshman and averaged 10.3 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting 44% from the field and 36% from 3. That earned him SEC All-Freshman honors. After the season, he transferred to Duke and sat out the entire 2012-13 season because of NCAA transfer rules. Once eligible, Duke immediately trusted him with a major role. Before playing an official game for the Blue Devils, Hood was named a team captain and alongside freshman Jabari Parker became one of their 2 leading scorers. He averaged 16.1 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 2.1 assists while shooting 46% from the field and an ACC leading 42% from 3. He finished second on Duke in scoring behind Parker and earned second-team All-ACC honors. Duke entered the NCAA tournament as a 3 seed, but was upset by 14 seed Mercer in its opening game, abruptly ending Hood's only season playing for the Blue Devils. With NBA size, proven shooting, and 2 productive college seasons behind him, Hood decided to forego his remaining eligibility and enter the loaded 2014 NBA draft, where his path to the league wouldn't go quite as expected. Stunt number 1, the draft slide and questions about his ceiling. Coming out of Duke, Rodney Hood looked like the type of player NBA teams were beginning to value more and more. He was 6'8", could play either wing position, had just averaged 16.1 points per game, and most importantly, shot 42% from 3. He wasn't some raw prospect teams had to imagine becoming a basketball player. He already had a polished offensive game, could score off the dribble, and looked capable of contributing immediately. But there were also reasons teams questioned just how much better he could become. He was already 21 years old, wasn't viewed as an elite athlete, and despite his size, scouts questioned his strength, defense, and ability to consistently create against NBA defenders. His ceiling became a major part of the conversation. Hood was projected by several outlets to go somewhere in the middle of the first round, with some mock drafts placing him in lottery range, but draft night went differently. Jabari Parker went second overall, and Hood continued waiting as teams selected younger players they believed had more long-term upside. Even wings like Nick Stauskas, Doug McDermott, and James Young came off the board before him. Hood eventually fell to Utah with the 23rd overall pick, much lower than anyone would expect, looking only at his Duke production. But this is where Hood's story gets interesting, because initially it looked like the league may have overthought him. After an injury-filled rookie season, he averaged 14.5 points in his second year, While starting all 79 games he played, he could shoot, attack closeouts, create his own shot, and gave Utah another legitimate scoring option alongside Gordon Hayward. By his fourth season, Hood was averaging a career-high 16.8 points in 39 games, including multiple 20-point performances and a career-high 30 against Orlando. For a player selected 23rd, Utah had clearly gotten great value, but Hood also never completely erased the concerns that pushed him down the draft. He was productive but not dominant, a scorer but never an especially efficient high-volume one, good enough to start but not clearly someone you build an offense around. So was Rodney Hood really overlooked in 2014? I think initially, yes, but as his career developed, the same ceilings teams questioned before the draft started becoming easier to understand. Hood had proven he belonged in the NBA, but the question of how much further he could go was still unanswered. Stunt number 2, Donovan Mitchell changed his trajectory. Rodney Hood's best opportunity to become more than just a solid NBA scorer may have disappeared the exact moment it seemed to open up. By the summer of 2017, Hood had already established himself in Utah. He was coming off consecutive seasons averaging double figures, had started 78 games the year before, and was still only 24 years old. Most importantly, Gordon Hayward left Utah for Boston that summer after averaging 21.9 points and making his first All-Star team. That left a massive hole in Utah's offense, and Hood was one of the obvious players who could potentially take on more responsibility. Then Donovan Mitchell showed up. Utah traded up to select Mitchell 13th overall in 2017, and it didn't take long before the rookie completely changed the direction of the franchise. Mitchell averaged 20.5 points his first season, led Utah in scoring, and quickly established himself as the player the Jazz could build around. Hood was actually having his highest scoring season of his career at the same time, averaging 16.8 points while shooting 38.9% from 3 in 39 games. But instead of becoming Utah's next primary scorer, Hood increasingly found himself coming off the bench while Mitchell took control. By February, Utah traded Hood to Cleveland in a 3-team deal, ending his time with the organization that drafted him. And Cleveland couldn't have been a more different situation. Hood went from a young Utah team where he had room to create to joining LeBron James in the middle of a championship or bust season. His scoring dropped to 10.8 points per game after the trade, and during the playoffs his role became even smaller. Hood averaged just 5.4 points during Cleveland's run to the 2018 NBA Finals and briefly fell out the rotation altogether. Things reached their lowest point when Hood refused to enter a Game 4 game against Toronto during garbage time, an incident he later apologized for. To his credit, when Cleveland called on him again in the finals, Hood responded, including a 15-point performance in Game 3 against Golden State. But the larger damage to his trajectory had already been done. Within one season, Hood went from potentially having an opportunity to replace some of Hayward's scoring in Utah to being a struggling role player on another team. Mitchell didn't ruin Rodney Hood's career, but his immediate rise changed what Hood's career had the chance to become. Stunt number 3, the Achilles tear. By the time Rodney Hood landed in Portland, becoming a star was probably no longer the realistic expectation. He was 26 years old, had already played for 3 teams, and Cleveland showed that forcing him into a smaller role could expose some of his limitations. But Portland gave Hood something he badly needed, a role that actually fit. The Trailblazers acquired him from Cleveland in February 2019, and Hood became an important piece during their playoff run. His biggest moment came against Denver in the second round, when Game 3 went to 4 overtimes. Hood came off the bench late in the 4th overtime and scored 7 points, including the go-ahead 3, helping Portland win one of the wildest playoff games in NBA history. The Blazers eventually reached the Western Conference Finals, and Hood averaged 9.9 points during that postseason, while shooting 35% from 3. Portland brought him back that summer, and early the next season, Hood looked completely comfortable. Through his first 21 games of the 2019-20 season, he was averaging 11 points while shooting 50% from the field and also 50% from 3. He wasn't putting up career-high scoring numbers, but he didn't need to. With Dame and CJ carrying the offense, Hood could pick his spots, space the floor, and punish defenses when attention went elsewhere. Then on December 6, 2019 against the Lakers, everything changed. Hood suffered a torn Achilles tendon, one of the most devastating injuries a basketball player can experience. He was only 27. He missed the remainder of the season and didn't return until December 2020, more than a year after the injury. And when he did, the difference was obvious. His scoring dropped to 4.7 points per game, while his three-point percentage fell below 30%. The Blazers traded him to Toronto during the season, beginning a stretch where Hood bounced from Portland to Toronto, Milwaukee, and finally the Clippers in roughly 1 year. By 2022, at only 29 years old, his NBA career was essentially over. That's what makes the Achilles injury the clearest physical stunt in Hood's growth. He had finally found a situation where nobody needed him to become something he wasn't. He just needed to be Rodney Hood, and right when that version was working, his body took it away. All in all, Rodney Hood had a good NBA career, and I think that's important to say because stunted growth doesn't always have to mean somebody was a bust. Hood played 8 seasons, became a starter, contributed to playoff teams, and averaged double figures for his career after being selected 23rd overall. Utah absolutely got value from that pick, but there were still moments where it felt like Hood had another level he might reach. He entered the league after being one of Duke's best players, slipped further in the draft than expected, then quickly proved he could score at the NBA level. When Gordon Hayward left Utah, Hood had an opening for his role to grow, but Donovan Mitchell arrived and immediately became the franchise's future. Cleveland didn't work out, but Portland eventually gave Hood the role that seemed almost perfect for him. And then, at only 27, he tore his Achilles while playing some of the most efficient basketball of his career. Maybe Hood was never going to become an all-star or a 20-point per game scorer. Maybe the player we saw was always close to his actual ceiling. But unfortunately, once Hood finally found the situation that fit exactly who he was, we never really got to see how long that version of him could last. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.